Imagine launching a military strike, only to find out the price of stopping it is a $300 billion reconstruction fund. That is the exact scenario now unfolding between the US and Iran. Look at this chart comparing that demand directly to Iran's total economic output. The country's nominal GDP sits right around $300 billion. Tehran is demanding the United States cover an entire year of their gross domestic production just to agree to a ceasefire. This standoff began with Donald Trump's decision to launch Operation Epic Fury. What followed was a brutal 90-day campaign of heavy U.S. bombing across Iranian territory. The strikes devastated the region. U.S. forces systematically dismantled critical infrastructure, collapsing bridges, flattening civilian buildings, and leaving thousands of Iranians dead or injured. But the campaign failed to break Tehran. Instead, the Iranian population dug in, fighting back with a fierce resilience that turned a rapid offensive into a grinding 90-day stalemate. Conventional strikes have reached their limit, and with Iran maintaining control over the Strait of Hormuz, a ground invasion would likely result in catastrophic U.S. casualties. This leaves the administration with only one military path to a definitive victory: the use of weapons of mass destruction, an option that's currently rejected due to the certainty of global condemnation. The initial choice to attack has left the U.S. with an impossible dilemma: hand over an astronomical financial payout to rebuild the country they just bombed, or commit to an unwinnable forever war. The proposed exit strategy is a U.S.-Iran Memorandum of Understanding. The primary mechanism of this peace deal is a post-war international investment fund designed to finance the reconstruction of Tehran. Calling it an international fund is heavily misleading. If the U.S. asks Europe or Japan to pitch in, those allies will point out that they didn't drop the bombs. No other nation is going to open their wallet for this. This balance sheet reveals the true cost for the American taxpayer, who is already footing the bill. Just executing the initial military operations and replacing destroyed U.S. aircraft and drones has cost an estimated $50 to $70 billion. Now, those same taxpayers are expected to cover the cleanup. The proposed deal adds a minimum of $300 billion to the ledger, with some Iranian officials demanding up to $1 trillion, simply to rebuild the exact infrastructure the U.S. military just destroyed. This reveals how modern military intervention functions as a punishing double tax on the public. Citizens pay billions to wage the conflict, and they pay billions more to make it stop. To see how poorly this military strategy has played out, we have to look at the historical baseline of previous diplomatic efforts. During the Obama administration, the U.S. struck a nuclear deal with Iran. This agreement was frequently criticized by political opponents, who claimed the president sent a plane loaded with $400 million in cash directly to Tehran. The $400 million consisted of Iran's own assets, which had been frozen since 1979, following a canceled arms deal. It was a return of their principal plus interest, rather than a withdrawal from the U.S. Treasury. This comparative matrix shows exactly how clean that diplomatic ledger is. It cost zero American taxpayer dollars, resulted in zero casualties, and successfully delayed Iran's nuclear program. Compare that to the current military intervention. We are looking at thousands of lives lost, upwards of $350 billion added to the U.S. national debt, and an Iranian nuclear threat that will likely return in 10 to 15 years anyway. Despite fierce political rhetoric, the data is undeniable. Good faith diplomacy is vastly cheaper in both blood and treasure than brute military force. Setting up a $300 billion fund establishes a highly dangerous precedent for the future of asymmetric warfare. It sends a clear signal to every U.S. adversary. If you can absorb a prolonged bombing campaign and simply survive the onslaught, you can extract a GDP-level financial payout to end the fighting. This settlement provides Tehran with a massive capital injection, shifting the regional power dynamic and leaving the U.S. with significantly less leverage in the Middle East. This strategic miscalculation exposes the stark limits of American military influence in the 21st century. When the bill for reconstruction exceeds the total GDP of the targeted nation, the financial logic of a quick strike collapses. The cleanup has become more expensive than the war itself. The geopolitical and economic costs of trying to bomb a nation into submission are no longer sustainable. When a leader chooses a poorly planned military strike over a negotiated settlement, it is the citizens who end up paying the ransom for decades.